So up next, insurance, innovation. Are these things possible? Yes, they are. So I am a huge insurance nerd. I love insurance, and the reason why is probably because I started out in finance and then moved over to health and kind of took that financial heritage with me. But I think that insurers have a good opportunity to move beyond being a partner in adjudication and become a partner in health, and to accomplish some pretty great things at scale. Someone in the leadership roundtable this morning said, "I hate the middleman. Insurance is the middleman." We need to get rid of them. And that's another perspective. But I do think that being that insurance companies have the data, they have the relationship with folks, and they have a long way to go in terms of helping people understand their plans and improve experiences. So this next panel, we'll invite the panelists on stage. Melinda Karp from Commonwealth Care Alliance. Melinda is a VP of Consumer-Centered Quality at Commonwealth Care Alliance. And Robin Glasgow, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. And Ed Boudreau, a VP at Optum Labs. And I have a great deal of respect for all of these folks. I'm kind of like giddy to be up here with you right now. But being that we have limited time, I'm going to just dive right into questions. So first off, I talked about the opportunity for health insurance companies to be a partner in health, and not just the person who sends you EOBs and you don't understand what they're talking about and you only call them when you're irritated type of thing. So if you could tell me, what do you think the purpose of health insurance companies could be, or if you could rewrite the mandate for health insurance companies, what would it be? Let's start, Melinda?
Oh, you want to start with me?
Okay.
So if I could rewrite the mandate for health insurers, I'm not sure how many of you know about CCA, Commonwealth Care Alliance, but we take care of a population of mostly dually eligible individuals. So they are people who are eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid. So the most complicated, individuals with the most complex set of needs that we see in society are the individuals that we take care of at CCA. And so if I could rewrite the mandate for health insurers, I would say to all of my colleagues in the commercial side, pay attention to the poorest and the most complicated individuals that we have in society, because actually those individuals who have the most complicated social and behavioral and physical needs, while they only represent a small part of the population, they actually represent a big piece of the cost, and they have voices who we have historically never ever heard from or listened to or validated. And in fact, there are a lot of myths around individuals with these complex sets of needs that, they can't use or don't want to use technology in their day-to-day world in managing their health. Not true. 70% of our members have cell phones. The ones that don't wish that they did, and they really want to engage with us in that way. Second is, it's really hard to engage individuals with these sets of complexities, and so we can't really have them engaged in partnership with us because it's just hard and they can't engage. Again, wrong. We at CCA have been working tirelessly to create these partnerships with our members. And in fact, if we can develop solutions that meet the needs and the expectations of these individuals, then the rest of it gets really easy to solve. And it's hard because it's a small part of the population, and there's not tons of revenue in it. I mean, all of our revenue comes from the federal and the state government, and I know that's not a place that any of you really want to be today. And so there's not a lot of revenue, but it's really, really important. And I would like to see our colleagues across health insurers be paying attention to this really important part of the population.
So if you were to rewrite the mandate, it would be pay attention to some vulnerable populations, because we can figure it out there. We can transfer that to the masses.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Robin?
Yeah, I'd build on that. I'm a fan of the Clay Christensen model of you run where everyone is running from. And that's where if you can solve for that population, you can probably fix healthcare.
Right.
So I would say, so in terms of rewriting, one, simplify, figure out what the rules are and fit them on a Post-it. This is too complex in terms of all of the layers and intricacies that are man-made creations that we need to simplify. And then I would say, again, being human-centered. You know, it's interesting, and my PR folks and marketing folks would hate that I say this, but in our offices at Blue Cross Blue Shield, plastered on the walls, patient-centered, we do everything for our members first. It's not unusual to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Many organizations have that. But when you start looking at the processes and how we have set up our interactions with members or customers, it isn't human-centered. And I think there's an aspiration for us to be, but we get stuck in the business of insurance and have moved, I think, away from human-centered.
Gotcha.
So fit it on a Post-it.
That makes total sense. How about you, Ed?
I'd love to yes and both folks here and say that I'm reading a book Unscaled, and it's really important to think in a way for a one-to-one relationship. So someone with diabetes may be a great case of a one-to-one example where let's solve for that one person. Let's solve healthcare for that one person, and then go from the one to many, using the human-centered design techniques that we always talk about, and create beautiful experiences for people, and perhaps even look a little further and say, what are the enabling things around genomics that we can use to predict healthcare and then intervene before anything actually happens? So we're in the space of wellness as opposed to healthcare. So.
Yeah, I was so disappointed in myself when you finished your point, because I had something to say and then it totally flatlined. But it is, I love that part about running toward the problems that everybody else is running away from. And the fact is that the system we have it was designed. Yeah. It's our sort of default now, but we got ourselves into this mess, so we can get ourselves out, right? Hopefully. And so along those lines, what do you think are the biggest obstacles to manifesting the vision that you also articulately shared with us? What are the obstacles, and how do you think that we can plow through them? Being as frank as possible.
I think one of the biggest obstacles I firmly believe, and these are actually my views and I would say my organization's views, that without creating authentic consumer or patient partnerships with organizations that serve them, we can't actually get to what's now the quadruple aim. We cannot improve quality, we cannot reduce costs, we cannot improve the experience of the end user, as well as the experience of the providers, without creating those authentic partnerships. And in order to create those authentic partnerships, we actually have to rebalance the alignment of power, in that consumers, and again, I speak from working for the last year and a half with consumers with incredible vulnerabilities, but consumers overall, there's a real power differential when we think about healthcare and solving the problems of healthcare in terms of those that have the expertise and those that use the services. And it's frankly just wrong. And really, we need to get to a place where we all truly embed within our beings that consumers of healthcare actually are experts. They are experts at their own lives, they are experts at their own bodies, and in fact, that is no less important than all the expertise that those of us sitting up here bring to the table every day. And without actually combining those sets of expertise into authentic partnership, we are not going to be able to solve the problems that we have today. And we're honestly, we're all sitting in this room because we care about this approach and taking this approach to design and development and execution. But in terms of when you go out into the world and you work with organizations every day, there's a big gap. I think to Robin's point, saying, at Blue Cross, there's all this sort of member-centered and patient-centered all over the walls, but it's really hard for organizations to live that every day and to actually reduce that power differential, particularly when we're talking about sort of on the clinical side and provider side. And we've got to crack that if we're going to be successful.
Yeah, I'll build on that. You should get more diverse panelists. We're agreeing too much. I'm trying to find a way to be provocative and say, no, that's wrong. No, I think, so for me, I think we know too much. And I say this often, that the answer to healthcare, it exists. It is, the best system is out there. It's pieces and parts are hanging out in other industries, and they're just waiting to be applied to ours. And when I say we know too much, it's the, oh, yeah, well, we can't do that because of SB-4321. Or no, we tried that, and and we know too much. And inviting people who have solved for the parts that are not working well in our industry. So whether it's the journey of trying to even get to the right coverage, the journey of trying to navigate coverage, whether you're well or whether you're sick or anywhere in between, the financial component, I mean, following the trail of money across the ecosystem, others have solved for simplifying that in very highly regulated industries. Others have solved for how to shift the rules in highly regulated industries. I mean, others have solved for just a lot of the problems that are wrong with healthcare, whether it's the Amazons of the world or the Ubers or others that are really thinking about supply and demand very differently than my actuary friends are. So I think we know too much in inviting others. One of the mindsets we adopt is this radical collaboration. I mean, I've been in this industry for over 25 years, and most of the people I talk to have been in this industry same amount of time, plus or minus. We would have fixed it already, right? And so, by inviting other industries, other people that think, yes, we can, then I think that's one of the biggest hurdles. That's a word, not. by being able to clear the hurdle of knowing too much by inviting others into the conversation.
So Ed, you're on the sort of bleeding edge of how we might apply emerging technology to solve problems in health. How do you kind of bring that into the fold? I mean, because the point of this question is, how might we enable the manifestation of this greater purpose? But when it comes to investing in newer companies and selling them to risk-averse organizations or getting them to take root, what have you seen that works in terms of enablement?
Sure. So what works is what I call a 1 degree shift in thinking, and things like the 10 types of innovation, which cause us to say, what breakthrough experiences do we want to create? What underlying platforms, this is what Amazon does, right? What underlying platforms would enable those beautiful experiences to come about? And then what's the business model around that? And that's where some of the rule breaking may come in to say, if we want to create this beautiful experience, then we need to create this platform, and we need to adjust the current business models to adapt. And then as far as technology is concerned, reverting right back to human-centered design and what are we solving for? So it's someone in behavioral health in which we've collected vast data on through deep data analysis, and then how do you apply AI? But you're really solving that military veterans problem with post-traumatic stress syndrome in solving for that person, and just working backwards for, can we create that one-to-one solution? How are we going to solve that through technology or emerging technology? And then how do we do that at scale?
That makes a lot of sense. I heard from somebody today that, first, somebody said to me once, there's a lot of solutions in health looking for a problem. There's a lot of hammers looking for a nail. And, how do we kind of push the envelope forward? So what advancements are you super excited about that are happening that you are kind of being like, whoa, I've been banging my head against this wall for 10 years hoping to make a dent, but this thing is kind of magical, and I think it might work.
I have to say one of the things I'm really excited about is the concept of Alexa, and I don't mean Alexa literally in that product, but the notion of a smart computer if you will, that can actually be in someone's home to be with them throughout their day and go through their day with them, particularly when I think about those individuals, again, with the highest rate of complexity and social isolation and social complexity, that imagine what having that sort of element in your daily life can do. And to be able to not I mean, part of it is, yeah, to help you remember to take your medicines and do all those health-related things that you need to do, but also to provide much needed social contact. And I know people may be cringing at the notion that I'm saying that a computer could be providing social contact, but compared to the no contact, it's actually a huge, huge advantage. And I think when I think about particularly our population, those kinds of models are really, really exciting to me because it actually represents a whole person approach to the use of technology. You know, there are all these apps out there waiting for a problem to solve, and they don't connect to each other, and you know, each one deals with one problem. So if you have 17 problems, you basically need 17 different apps, and that's overwhelming. We can all only remember like 7 things at a time. So, so the idea of creating technology that is really whole person oriented and able to be programmed to the very individual day that someone is having, and your day looks really different than my day, and yours looks different than Amy's, and to be able to have that level of customization at a person level, but be mass produced is, you know, really cool.
Yeah, I definitely, what fills up my email are solutions looking for a buyer. And I'm like, I'm broke, I have no money. And also, we are very problem focused, so it's very much from an empathy, and we're not there yet in terms of ready for solution. However, what I am excited about is more conceptually around the energy and entrance of Alexa-like objects and other types of technology that are being applied in a different way to healthcare, that are being developed exclusively for healthcare. So I get excited about that. There's just a lot of energy and activity that's happening in healthcare as it pertains to solutions. Some of my resistance comes from, I think what you were talking about, Melinda, where a lot of the solutions are fragmented solution on top of a fragmented system is an expensive, fragmented system. And so, just my opinion. Yeah. So I am interested in, you know, the connectivity of that can have more of that 360 view of me, because, you know, let's just say I'm diabetic. I probably have other things in my life that I'm concerned or worried about from a health perspective that may not be related to diabetes. I could be diabetic and want to have a baby. Well, maybe that's a bad example. Very bad example. Any event, so I definitely think, you know, with respect to what's happening in the industry that brings forward the technology like Alexa and other types of solutions.
Yeah, another thing that came out this morning was to fall in love with the problem, because there are so many solutions, and I often wonder, you know, how does that list of priorities get generated that an organization is going to work on? You know, how does something make it onto the list, and then how does that list get prioritized so that we'll do it? Because I wonder if kind of not enough attention is put upon really understanding the problem space and having authentic partnership with the people we serve. So I guess the question is, how can we as insurance companies truly partner with members? How much? You know, how often? How should they be involved? And also, how do we take a step back too to collaborate with other entities, because we have this kind of tunnel vision on just the needs of our organization, but we're one part of a whole. So what has been your approach to, you know, involving members or reaching out beyond insurance, beyond your organization to pull others in? Any approaches there?
Well, my motto is engage your members or patients or those who you are serving early and often. It's kind of like voting, only it's legal to do it this way. Because early and often and through all phases of design and development and throughout your entire vertical of your organization. So it needs to go across the organization and it needs to go up and down the organization. And it is, it's a lot of resource to do that. It takes a lot of time and energy. But as Robin was saying, it's a cost of doing business. If we are truly going to create authentic partnerships, then, and we're building at CCA a cohort of, we're now at about 275 members, and we want to get to 400 before the end of the year. That becomes our member cohort that is a sort of microcosm of the population that we serve overall that we can tap into every day. The other thing that you'll hear from all of your business leaders and your functional area owners is, I cannot wait 2 months for you to get me member input in order to be able to design X, Y, and Z. Right. So it's really important to be able to create an approach that next week I can have the members that you need, or maybe even tomorrow, depending on what you want to do. I can have those members or those patients at the ready, because that's how we're going to embed it into the way we do business. I like to say to my colleagues, you would never put a project proposal forward without a budget to your executive leadership team. That would be suicide. That'd be crazy. They would laugh you out of the room. Well, we need to get to a place where in organizations, we never put forward a project without having a robust plan for consumer member engagement all the way through design and development, and a member impact or a patient impact process. At the front end, it should be just like a budget. Like, well, I got to do a budget if I want to do this project, and I've got to figure out how and what the most appropriate way is for me to get my members or my patients engaged at all stages of development. And it is easier said than done. It is hard to walk that talk, but it's about it's also about organizational culture change. That you want to get to a place where it is the way you do business, and it probably takes. I know it takes years to get there.
Love to yes and you on that, and love the problem as well, because sometimes internally folks will say, this is the problem. We say, great, let's go discover if that's the problem or not. And we'll go talk to patients, providers, whatever it may be. And I think the best discovery is when you synthesize that and you understand it more deeply, you can say, that's not actually the problem. Here's the problem. Because you're getting it directly from folks that are experiencing that, and you find kind of more beautiful things in the journey that you're able to address, and it has much more of an impact. And then you can go test that quickly to get feedback from the market and do that in an iterative, experimental way. And then you can love the problem, because you can solve something, you can love it.
I don't know how you call your business human-centered without talking to humans. And I always credit this to Don Berwick. I'm not sure if he's the originator of the nothing about me without me. So whether that's a patient, provider, business partner, putting people together, only good things happen when you have that occurring.
And I would just to add on to Ed, I would say we just did last year a very intensive member journey mapping process at our organization. And we first did an inside out view where we asked all of our leaders and functional area leaders about sort of, well, what do you think the problems are, and what do you think the pain points and moments that matter are for members? Then we, of course, went out and validated that with members, because they get to have the last word. We got it wrong 50% of the time. And so if you don't remember anything else about anything that I've said, you'll remember everything they said. But if you don't remember anything I said, just remember, if you do not actually get the voice of your consumer, member, patient, your end user, you will probably get it wrong half the time, because our experience was not unique. So.
All right, final question, and keep it brief, but I've done some investigation, and I found that people who report to you think that you're pretty great. And I know, Ed, you invest a lot in staff development. Robin, you basically walk on water according to your direct reports. And Melinda, people seem to pretty much like you as well. So the question is, so in insurance, insurance companies have this rap of being, the big bad wolf in healthcare, and it's like, would good people really work for health insurance companies? Well, I've met many of them, and they are really good people, and they actually want to improve health and make the world a better place and all this stuff. But as new graduates from college are entering the marketplace and might want to work for an insurance company, with all of your wisdom, what would you tell them, briefly?
I would say we would love to have you as long as you thrive in uncertainty and can be adaptable and flexible to rapid change. Those are really important things that you need to have.
I tell this to, I embrace a model of interns, and we sit in the land of phenomenal colleges and universities, and I steal from every last one of them. And I tell them, I meet with every one of them before they're hired and once they're there. I said, this will be the best job you ever have. And because you will never have the opportunity to create and to build, and where your voice is actually sought after. I have my 20-year-olds having one-on-one meetings with our CEO. And I don't even bat an eye. I'm like, I don't need to be there. I don't need to go. They have such a child's mind, pun intended a little bit, with respect to healthcare. They don't know enough about it. And that's great. Because then, and they are adaptable, flexible. I mean, these kids pack like 50 hours in a 24-hour span of tweeting and Facebooking and all
BS.
Facebooking. You can tell where Robin is in this
yeah,
world.
I know. I've aged out of that career. So, yeah.
It's easy, and I tell folks that work for me this: everything you do makes a difference. Every single thing you do, and we're lucky because we get to work across the enterprise. So we're working with nurses, patients, providers, doctors, strategy. So, but literally every minute they're there makes a difference, and you have to focus on the end game. And there is, in any business, there's stuff to deal with, right? But if you focus on everything I do is going to make a difference for patients, for providers, for everyone, that's really how I feel, and I sprint into work every day. I literally do. Yeah.
Awesome. I hope somebody tweeted that stuff. It's pretty good. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys.
Yeah.